All right, let's just get right into it. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a philosophy that is, well, it's pretty bold. It's actually completely counter to what most of us are taught about relationships. We're looking at a translated text called The Magical First Time. And it makes this wild claim that your first impression of someone isn't just a tiny, helpful hint, it is literally an infallible guide to exactly how that relationship or situation is going to unfold. It's a radical perspective that completely challenges the whole idea of having patience and giving people second chances. So let's jump in.
So think about it. Have you ever met someone, maybe shook their hand, and instantly felt just a little bit off? We've all been there, right? You get that fleeting shadow of a doubt in your gut. But what do? We brush it aside. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just overthinking it, or I'm being way too judgmental. Well, today we're looking at what this source material says happens when we ignore that initial gut feeling, and why it argues we actually need to start paying very, very close attention to it instead.
So that brings us to Section 1, the phenomenon, the reality of first encounters.
The core idea here is incredibly straightforward. If your first impression is bad, no matter how much time goes by, everything that follows is going to be an uphill battle. The text shares a really relatable anecdote about hiring a carpenter. Imagine this. Minute 1, the carpenter saws a board crookedly. By hour 1, the author feels this shadow of doubt, but, ignores it. Just a momentary lapse, right? Nope. By day 1, the result is completely wasted materials, wasted time, and wasted energy. That initial crooked cut wasn't just a tiny mistake, it was a pure, undeniable preview of the carelessness that was coming.
And the text gives us another timeline to really hammer this home. This time, it's about a quote-unquote cunning acquaintance. Day 1 of meeting this person, the author picks up on their wandering eyes and this sly, cunning look. Day 5, a twinge of doubt pops up, but again, it's totally ignored. They keep hanging out. Fast forward to day 10. The author asks for help with 2 simple tasks. And what happens? The acquaintance tries to pull a fast one and do sneaky things both times. The pattern is super clear here. Dragging things out when you have a bad gut feeling, it just means you're going to get burned.
So how do we actually apply this in real life? The text gives us these rapid-fire rules for firsts, and they are incredibly binary. Unhappy first visit to a new place? Don't go back. Disappointing first date? Do not keep dating them. Hurt first collaboration? Never work with them again. The source is dead serious about this absolute, non-negotiable need to break ties immediately when that very first encounter brings disappointment. No second dates. 0 second chances. And what's actually wild is how the author frames this. Look at this quote. The feelings from the first encounter are the most genuine, and the first impression is a sign from above. They aren't just calling this street smarts or basic intuition. They're literally elevating a first impression to a divine revelation. It's pitched as a literal sign meant to guide and protect you. So, ignoring it, it's not just foolish. According to the text, it's like hanging up the phone when the universe is calling to warn you.
Which takes us straight into Section 2, the myth of patience, dismantling conventional wisdom.
Because honestly, this radical philosophy completely clashes with everything society drills into us. Check out this comparison. On the left, we've got conventional wisdom. Unite with everyone, be inclusive, and the big one, believe people can change. We hear that literally all the time. But on the right side, the source's reality tears those adages apart. It says we need to seek joy, avoid mental torment, and whatever you do, don't wait for change. The argument here is that forcing inclusivity with people who just aren't your vibe actually leads to long-term emotional exhaustion and misery. Which brings us to this incredibly hard-hitting quote from the text. A person's transformation requires hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation, and patience belongs to the divine, not to us. I mean, wow. It's a fascinating perspective, right? The text isn't necessarily claiming people can't change at all. It's just highlighting the absolute futility of you, a regular, everyday person, waiting around for someone to completely alter their fundamental nature during your lifetime. 1,000. The source actually suggests it takes 1,000 years for someone's core nature to truly transform. And since we, only live for a few short decades, waiting around for a bad apple to turn into a good one is just a massive, painful waste of our limited time. Our time is way too precious to spend it trying to fix or endure people who just don't treat us right.
And that naturally leads us to Section 3, the law of resonance, why we clash or connect.
The why behind all of this, according to the text, comes down to this concept of life structure. It defines this as the fundamental nature or the antimatter makeup of a person that dictates who they can organically resonate with. Basically, the idea is that we all just inherently operate on different and sometimes completely incompatible spiritual and physiological frequencies. So it's not even about one person being objectively good and the other bad. It's literally just about whether your fundamental structures can naturally harmonize.
The text uses these really vivid metaphors to break this down. Look at the compatible pairings over on the left, the ones that bring joy. Water mixes perfectly with milk. Pigs are perfectly happy rolling around with other pigs. Sages thrive hanging out with sages. But then look at the incompatible pairings on the right, the ones that bring suffering. Water and oil, they just do not mix. And when sages try to mingle with worldly people, or celestial beings try to kick it with mortals, the text argues that it doesn't matter how hard they try. Even if they genuinely want to share love and hang out, trying to force it only brings deep, fundamental discomfort.
So what happens when we try to force it anyway? Let's look at Section 4, the cost of compromise, the trap of people-pleasing. Now, you're probably thinking, if I cut ties this easily, won't I just end up totally alone? And that fear leads to this exact thought. All right, I'll just go along with this. Honestly, how many times have we all said that to ourselves? It's a super common trap. We compromise who we are just to fit in, mostly because we are terrified of being lonely. We ignore that bad first impression because we convince ourselves that having some company is better than having no company.
But here is the author's incredibly counterintuitive takeaway. Pleasing others doesn't actually cure our loneliness. In fact, bending over backward to accommodate people with entirely different life structures just leads to deeper helplessness and frustration. By desperately trying not to be alone, we actually end up feeling more internally isolated and misunderstood than if we had just walked away on day one.
So how do we wrap up this entire philosophy? That brings us to our final section, the ultimate rule, trusting the magic.
The stakes here are perfectly captured in this really powerful quote. It's better to live one happy day than to endure 100 years of misery. That really puts the urgency of life into perspective, doesn't it? The text is essentially begging the reader to prioritize their own personal joy. Choose resonance over enduring long-term humiliation or discomfort just for the sake of being polite.
So if you're going to use this going forward, it all boils down to the super simple 3-step procedure for every new encounter. Step 1, feel the first impression and do not overthink it. Don't go asking all your friends for advice. Step 2, if it feels good, cherish it, nurture it, keep it going. And step 3, if it feels bad, cut ties and let it go immediately. Rely completely on your own inner compass and actively ignore those well-meaning people who tell you to just be patient. Because ultimately, you are the only one who can feel your own internal resonance.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Will you trust your next first impression? The next time you meet someone and you get that unexplainable sinking feeling in your stomach, are you going to try to talk yourself out of it, or will you courageously apply this radical philosophy, trust the magic of that first encounter, and just walk away? It is definitely a heavy question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep trusting your gut.